Hello and welcome to the MBOM podcast, where you'll learn to master the business of yoga. MBOM is a proud part of the Wander Barn Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Amanda Kingsmith. I'm a 500-hour registered yoga teacher, a yoga business coach, and a total business geek. Here at MBOM, you'll learn everything you need to know to create a sustainable yoga business by learning from myself and guests from around the world about how they built their yoga businesses, and about how you too can become a successful yoga teacher, studio owner, and much more. All right, let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Mastering the Business of Yoga. I'm Amanda, and I'll be your host for today and all episodes of the show. And I am so excited to be diving into episode 1 of our send-off series today. And just like it says in the title, we're going to be talking about everything that you need to do after you've got your yoga teacher training. So you're trained, you're excited, you're ready to get teaching. What the heck are you supposed to do next? And this was a question that I asked myself and asked other people a lot when I was a new yoga teacher, back in 2015. And so I'm really excited to dive into this today. But before we get there, I just want to welcome you to the show, welcome you back to the podcast if you're a longtime listener. And if you missed last week's episode and you're like, what the heck is going on? I would definitely recommend going back and listening. But to give you the high-level overview, I announced a big life update that we are going to be closing the chapter of MBOM, and we're going to be doing a 5-episode send-off series covering a range of different topics that will support yoga teachers and studio owners in their yoga teaching journey. And I hope that this is a really great way to just round everything off with the podcast, close out our last 9 years of production and over 300 episodes of the show. So I'm really excited to dive in with you here today. But before we get there, I just wanted to introduce myself. If you're new to the show, or maybe it's been a while since you have heard from me, I wanted to just take a moment to just introduce myself to everyone and talk a little bit about who I am and how I got here and my philosophy on the business of yoga. So like I said before, my name is Amanda. I am originally from Western Canada, and I currently am based in Central Mexico with my husband and my 2 little girls. My daughters are 3 and 1, so I'm a girl mom of 2. And my background is in business. So that's what I studied in university. That's what I worked in corporate for a number of years. Business and marketing is kind of my jam. And in 2015, so over a decade ago, I decided to do a yoga teacher training program in Bali and become a yoga teacher. And from there, I really decided that I wanted to make a go at a career of teaching yoga. And I soon found that it was really not sustainable to just be teaching group classes. And I had this moment of like, how do I do this? How do I be successful with this? How do I get jobs doing this? How do I get in front of people? How do I actually make a sustainable living? And so MBOM was really born out of a need that I had myself as a new yoga teacher. And so the podcast launched at the beginning of 2016, and I started interviewing yoga teachers that were ahead of me and learning from them and picking their brains about how to create a great sustainable career. And from there, it's just really taken off. And I've been able to not only interview people who are ahead of me, but also teach people who are newer yoga teachers and who are behind me in their careers. And so this podcast has really expanded into a business with coaching and, offerings on my website, courses, teaching and yoga teacher training programs, and the latest thing that I released in 2023, which is my book. It's called How to Master the Business of Yoga, and it's a compilation of a number of podcast episodes that we've done over the years to really help you get your business started. And I am really passionate about helping yoga teachers find what makes them excited and also help them understand how the business of yoga can help them, why it's important, and all of those good things. So a lot of that we're going to dive into today's episode, and I'm so excited to get into that. But before we do that, I wanted to give a little update about what we're doing here, because if you followed the show for a while, then this might feel like a little bit of a different style of episode. And in many ways, it is. So, this is going to be a 5 episode series, and I'm calling this the Send Off series because for now, this is going to be the end of MBO. I've decided that I'm ready for a more long-term break. I'm ready to pursue something a little bit different. But before we do that, I really want to create some really great evergreen resources for you to help you along your journey, to help your yoga teacher friends, to help the people that you perhaps train in trainings and all of that good stuff. So over the next 5 weeks, we are going to be covering various topics that I think are very important in your yoga business and for getting started and continuing to grow. So we'll be covering those once a week for the next 5 weeks. They're going to live on the feed. And, after those are done, we are going to have no more episodes for the foreseeable future. So will MBM come back in the future? Maybe, maybe not. I'm not too sure. But for now, we're going to do a little send off, a little goodbye. And yes, this feels hard and sad for me. So if you've been a listener for a long time and you're feeling like, oh, what? I love this podcast. First of all, thank you. And second of all, I feel you. This was my baby before I had physical babies. And so it's been a big part of my life, a big chapter of my life. And it definitely feels bittersweet to be kind of putting the final touches on it, at least for now. So I want to start by giving a little shout out to Offering Tree. Offering Tree has generously partnered with me to produce these episodes. I am so grateful as always to just be working with Offering Tree. They have the best team. They have the best software. They are just amazing. So I'm going to tell you more about Offering Tree as we go through the episode and how they can support you in your business. And I'll tell you more about them over the coming episodes, but just wanted to give a little shout out to Offering Tree. You guys should definitely go check them out, offeringtree.com/MBO. And I'll tell you a little more about them later. So why don't we dive into things? We are going to kick things off from the place of you just got your yoga teacher training and you're not sure what's next. So what is next? How do we actually get started as yoga teachers? And like I said before, this was very much like where I was when I started. I felt so excited to start teaching and to get going with my business and to get teaching experience. And I felt like my teacher training had really prepared me for what to do once I got into the studio space and in front of people, but I just really didn't know how to actually do that. And so I want to fill in that piece for you. But where we're going to start with this is talking a little bit about what the business of yoga is, first of all, and why it's important. So one thing that's really important to keep in mind is that when you become a yoga teacher, in many senses, you also become a business owner. So it's really important to understand how to teach yoga, of course, but it's also important to understand all the other components that go into getting a teaching job, making a sustainable income, and more. And I think that this is really where the business of yoga comes into play. When I think of the business of yoga, I think the freedom to do what you love and make a sustainable income doing it, the ability to do what you're meant to do. For many of us, this feels like a calling or like what our purpose is. And also the ability to reach more students and serve them with your passion for yoga, which is really, really wonderful. So the business of yoga is important because it's how you're going to get teaching opportunities. It's how you'll get private clients if that's something you want to do. It's how you'll sell out workshops, make a sustainable living, clearly communicate your programs and offerings to your students, how you'll help and serve others with yoga. And I really think that it's the key to turning your dreams into a reality. It is such an important aspect to actually turning your teacher training certificate into a sustainable career. So a couple of business essentials that I want to go over that I think are just very foundational to us getting started. The first is that you always have to come back to your practice what you teach, and teach from a place of authenticity. I cannot stress this enough. If you are getting to a place with your teaching where you do not have time or energy or any interest in practicing anymore, having a self-practice, practicing with other teachers, then I feel like we've kind of like lost what this is all about. It's so important to come back to your practice. This is the heart, this is the foundation, this is the North Star of what you're doing as a yoga teacher. Another key here is to build community and hold space for your students. Obviously, teaching yoga is about more than just yoga, and it's truly a community space. And we are, as the teachers, the space holder. And so we really have this opportunity to build community and hold space for our people. Another important business essential is to get clear on your why for wanting to teach, really understanding why you wanted to do a yoga teacher training, why you want to teach. And this is going to be something that's going to drive you forward when things get hard as an entrepreneur, when things get hard as a solopreneur, when you have to make tough decisions about saying yes or no to something. This is really going to be the thing that drives you forward. And then I want you to think about, what are your values? So values are a person's principles or standards of behavior, one's judgment of what is important in life. And I really feel like the key to heart-centered business is to have values in your life and business that you stick to no matter what. And again, alongside your why, your values are going to be super important to just make decisions about what you want to do with your business, what is a yes to you, what is a no to you. Your values are going to really help you decide how you set your prices, what you offer, et cetera, et cetera. So these are really important to determine. And I think it's important to spend a little bit of time with this. Sit down, brainstorm, what is your why? What are your values? What's important to you? And you need to do this before you start applying for teaching jobs, before you start building your business. We really need to have this foundational piece. So once we've gotten clear on our why and our values and really like who we are as yoga teachers, we also need to get clear on what you want to do. So a good place to start is to think about some career options for new yoga teachers. So of course, you can teach group classes for a yoga studio or a wellness center, a community center, a gym, any space like that. You can also teach one-on-one privates or small groups, and we'll talk a little bit more about this stuff in next week's episode in more detail about like pricing and all that type of stuff. But you can teach one-on-one, you can run workshops and or registered programs on a specific topic that you're passionate about and skilled in. Of course, you can open your own yoga studio, and if that's something of interest, we're also going to do an episode on that. You can run your yoga practice entirely online, and surprise, surprise, also doing an episode on that. Or you can pair yoga with something else that you're passionate about, like yoga therapy, Ayurveda, any type of sports, massage, nutrition, personal training, etc. You can also go on to get a 300-hour certification like I did. That was one of the things I did within the first few years of my teaching. I got my 200-hour in 2015 and then my 300-hour in 2019. So I'd been teaching for about 4 years. Some people do it sooner, some people do it later, but I really loved getting that advanced teacher training to just kind of take my teaching to the next level. Or if it's of interest to you, you can look into yoga therapy. That's a way that a lot of people kind of expand their business or take their careers. And truly, the options are endless. I think that's one of the things that I really love about this career that makes me feel excited is the well is so deep when it comes to yoga. There's always so much to learn. There's so much to dive into. There are so many different options that you can do with your career. There's so many specializations. There is a huge, endless population of people that you can service. So it's just really nice to know that you're entering a career space where there's just so many possibilities for you. So that is pretty exciting. And so once you've kind of decided where you want to start, and a lot of new yoga teachers start with group classes in a yoga studio or a community space, which is great, you really want to start teaching as much as you can to whoever you can. And the reason why you want to do this is that it really helps you hone your language and cues. It helps you feel more comfortable being in front of people, leading a room. It helps you to watch more bodies move. Obviously, we get to watch people in our teacher training programs, but to watch people who sit at desks all day, or people who don't really do yoga very often, or people who are brand new to the practice, just to watch that the way that they move is just such a great learning experience. You also get to know your teaching style and what you enjoy most about teaching, which I think is huge as we're developing our career. Getting to know who we are as a yoga teacher is so, so important. And just a journey of discovery. It's so fun to go out and do that. So try a lot of different classes and styles to really discover what you like, what you don't like, and then you can really hone in from there and start to build out your business and your career. And it's really important to get more teaching hours and practice. And of course, this makes it easier to get teaching opportunities when you go to apply in the future. Just like any other career or job, it's going to be hardest to get your first few jobs. You have to kind of convince people to hire you when you don't have a lot of experience, which is always the hardest thing to do when it comes to career stuff. And so, one of the questions I get asked a lot, and one of the things that I think is really important to talk about here is how do you actually get teaching opportunities as a new yoga teacher? Like, what do you actually need to get these opportunities, to get in studios, to get in front of people? So, I want to talk about a couple of tangible things that I think are really important here for you to do, for you to have, all that type of thing. And so the first thing I want to talk about is having a headshot. So you might be thinking that this isn't like the most important thing for you to do when you're trying to get teaching gigs and start making money and get your experience and all this type of thing. But this is the type of thing that when you do get hired, either as a substitute or with a regular class at a studio, they're going to ask you for a headshot. It's one of the first things that you're going to get asked for. So I feel like as you're preparing everything, as you're applying for jobs, I think it's really important to get a headshot done. So of course, you can hire a professional photographer to get photos and you can get a headshot in there. But honestly, I feel like phones these days have such good cameras that you can just get a photo of yourself taken by whoever you live with, a family member, a friend, a partner, and just put it on portrait mode. Get a nice, like, clear background, like a brick wall or a cream colored wall or white or whatever, a door even can work, and just get a photo taken. You're going to want to have it sort of like your shoulders upwards, looking at the camera. You can smile, however feels natural for you. And hopefully it's a photo that you like, that you're comfortable sending to yoga studio owners or, the heads of gyms or wellness centers, because once you actually do get these opportunities, this is going to be something that you can use. This is also something you can put on your resume, and we'll talk about resumes in just a second because having a yoga teacher resume is a key part of getting yoga teacher jobs, getting these opportunities. But before we get there, I want to talk about bios because this is the other thing that when you get hired at a studio, they're going to ask you for a bio. So a bio is going to be about 3 to 5 sentences about yourself. You should include your teaching designation, a little bit about your why, who you are as a teacher, and what people can expect from your classes. And I'm happy to read one of my bios here for you. This one is a little bit more towards the business of yoga, but it is still like a yoga teacher bio. So let me share that with you. So my bio goes like this. Amanda Kingsmith is a 500-hour registered yoga teacher, a yoga business coach, and a world traveler. She blends her background in business with her love of yoga and is passionate about helping yoga teachers create careers that they're passionate about and that are sustainable. She is the host of Mastering the Business of Yoga, or MBO, as well as the co-host of The World Wanderers, a podcast on travel and travel as a lifestyle. When she's not practicing or teaching yoga, you can find Amanda traveling the world with her husband and daughters, hiking mountains, or curling up with a cup of tea and a good book. You can learn more at mbomyoga.com. So here you can see I've got my name, my teaching designation, a little bit of other things about me, a little bit about my passions, and a little bit about who I am outside of teaching. So this is a bio that I could use. Probably not for a yoga studio necessarily, but if I was teaching in a training or an event or a conference or something like that, this is something that I've got, I've got a version of this on my website. So it really just gives like kind of a high level overview about myself. So this is something that you definitely want to have: your teaching designation, who you are, your why, a little bit about your teaching, et cetera, et cetera. This is a really important thing to have as you go into getting jobs and starting to teach with studios or other like spaces. So I teased this before, but the next thing that we're going to talk about and that I'm going to encourage you to create is your yoga teacher resume. Now, just to be very clear, this is going to be different than any other resume you've created. This is specifically for your yoga teaching journey, for your yoga teaching career. And it's not like, hey, I had this whole other career and I'm just going to add that I'm a yoga teacher to it. That's not super beneficial and helpful to yoga studio owners that might be wanting to hire you. We really want to have a document that kind of lives on its own for this new career that you're embarking into. And of course, we can have our other past careers and things that we've done on there. It's just we're not combining them and having something that's like super lengthy with a lot of text and words and all the experience you've ever had on it, just because that's not what somebody who's going to hire you is looking for. They want to know specifically how your experience, your training can be of benefit to their studio, to their space. So, what should you include? Of course, your name, a business name if you have it, a photo or your headshot if you're comfortable with that, your bio that you just went through and wrote, and then, of course, contact information. So, you for sure want to have an email address and a phone number, or at least one of those that somebody can reach you at. I very much prefer to have my email address on there because I often don't answer calls from numbers that I don't recognize or that I don't know. So for sure have an email address on there. And pro tip, make sure you have a professional email address, something like amandakingsmith@gmail.com or amandakingsmithyoga@gmail.com, something that really reflects this career that you're embarking on or that at least has your name and is professional. I think we all had those email addresses that were not our name at one point. Like I had Manda Panda 42 for a while. I think that was my first email address back in the day. I had Funky Feet 4 for a while. So we're not using Manda Panda 42. We're not using Funky Feet 4. We're using the more professional one. So if you have still been rocking your like high school, middle school email address, no judgment, but it's time to create something new for your new yoga teacher training career. So you also want to include trainings you've attended, any continuing education or weekend workshops that you've done, any experience that you have. So this can be teaching experience from your teacher training. This can be teaching friends and family. This can be studio experience. This can be workshops, retreats, privates, any specialty programs that you've run, any other additional experience that you have in the yoga industry, and any other experience you have that's related to getting a job as a yoga teacher. So, for example, some of these could be if you've ever done like karma cleaning in a studio, if you've ever done yoga studio check-in, yoga studio management, if you've ever worked kind of in and around the yoga industry. So for me, I worked at a yoga studio before I got my teacher training, so I included that. And I also worked at Lululemon. So even though that's not super specific to teaching, it's kind of in the yoga space, and it also signifies that I'm comfortable talking to people I don't know. I was very comfortable being in spaces with strangers and striking up conversations, helping them with what they needed. And so I thought that really kind of showcased my experience being able to speak in front of people and engage with people in a way that's comfortable that I don't know. And so when it comes to putting together your yoga resume, I would really encourage you to allow your personality to shine through. I'm a big fan of creating resumes on Canva. It's canva.com. You have to create an account, but it's totally free to get started. Of course, they have like pro options and paid options because they're a business trying to make money, but they do have lots of really great free templates and free options. So when you go in there and create your account, you can just search resume, find a template. This will basically turn you into a designer without actually having to be a designer, which is pretty awesome. I'm a pretty big fan of Canva, so I would definitely recommend doing that. And if you don't have kind of an idea of the colors that you want for your business or any like branding started yet, just think about kind of what colors inspire you that kind of feel like you and your personality, choose those colors. And while I'm a big fan of using photos and being creative and letting our personality shine through, I think it's also really important to state and remember that we need it to be legible. We need it to be readable. So we're not using any like hard to read cursive font. We're not using any like bright neon colors. Definitely don't want your font in any bright colors. So if you're ever uncertain, have somebody look at it, have a second set of eyes on it. Just make sure they can see it, that they can read it clearly, because that's super important. If you send off a resume or you take in a resume and somebody can't read it, they're probably not going to hire you. So that is the next thing that we want to create. So far we've got our headshot, we've got our bio, we've got our resume. We're putting our headshot and our bio on our resume. So we've got it kind of all in one place. And I think that this is really the basics of what you need to start applying for jobs. I'm going to share a couple of other things that I recommend that can really help you stand apart and to just really help you get going with this. But just know that at this point, you are ready to start applying for jobs. You are good to go. You have got everything that you need. So I would say having that resume is really key. And this is something that you could start emailing off. You could start printing this off and taking it into studios, meeting studios, all that type of thing. We are going to talk a little bit more about what it's like to connect with studio owners and whatnot in just a couple of minutes here. But just know that at this point, you are good to go. So another thing that I think can be really helpful for our yoga business is building a yoga website with a lead magnet. So I am a huge fan of yoga teachers having websites. This is something that if you have listened to the podcast for a while, or if you start diving into some other podcast episodes, you will learn quickly that I am a big fan of websites. So why is that? I feel like a website for yoga teachers is really your personal storefront. It's like your personal corner of the internet. It is where you can showcase everything that you've got going on and talk about yourself. And I just feel like it's a more like professional space than just having social media, because of course we can do a lot of this via social media, but it just keeps everything more like organized, professional, and really allows you to just talk about who you are and showcase yourself. So let's talk a little bit more about websites and what you would include. So I think that it would be great to have a homepage where there's like a photo of yourself or a photo of something having to do with yoga. You can have your name, your business name, a little bit about yourself and what you offer. It's great to put your headshot and your bio on an about page. And this is a great opportunity to maybe have a more like long form bio where you talk a little bit more about your story, how you came to yoga, why you decided to do a yoga teacher training, what you're really passionate about, why you want to be of service, all that type of thing. Like this is your corner of the internet. So you can really like tell your whole story here, which is cool. You also want to have your services and offerings either on your homepage and easily accessible, or maybe on a separate tab on your menu where people can easily see like what classes do you offer, what do you charge for them, a way for people to actually book and pay you. I think that this is really key. So you can have like your group classes, you can have any other offerings you have, like if you're going to offer workshops or privates, et cetera, et cetera. Again, we're going to talk about that next week, so don't stress too much about that right now. But just know that that is something that you can for sure have on that section of your website. And then, like I said, we want to be able to have people book with us, pay you, all that type of thing. You want contact information for sure. The best way to do this is a contact form. This allows people to fill in the information that they want, send it straight to your inbox, and you're not just putting your email address and your phone number on the internet, because unfortunately, there are ways for people to like data scrape, and then you'll start getting spam to your inbox, to your phone number, et cetera, et cetera. So for sure have a way for people to contact you, but use a contact form. And yeah, just really make this your own. Again, we're going to talk about branding in a couple of episodes and marketing and all that type of thing to really like tie this all together. But know that this is your corner of the internet again. So this is where you get to allow your personality to shine through. You can choose your photos, you can choose your colors, you can choose your text, you can choose the message that you want, the words that you want to use. So really think about how you can create something that really feels like you. And while I am a really big fan of having a website, I also want to make a caveat that sometimes building a website when you're new and you don't really know what you're doing can feel really overwhelming and like, hey, I just don't know what to say. Like, I don't know a lot about who I am as a yoga teacher yet. I don't know what colors I want to use. I don't really know what services I'm going to offer. And that's why I said before, if you've got your resume ready to go, this is a great time to go out and start getting teaching experience. Start teaching in studio spaces, in community centers, in gyms. Teach your family, teach your friends, get all that teaching experience. Learn who you are as a teacher, and then you can start building out this website. Some of us already kind of have a sense for what we want to do. And so if that's you, then I think it is a really great tool to have in your toolbox. And if you have a website that you can put on your resume, if you have a website that you can share with people right away, then I think it's a great opportunity to just get started with it. So websites, I think, are very important, and they are important for new yoga teachers, but just keep in mind if you're feeling a little overwhelmed that you don't have to have a website before you start getting jobs. It's just something that I think can be helpful. So at this point, I want to talk a little bit about how we actually build a website, because I think that this can be one of the most daunting things for people. So let's dive into that a little bit. At the beginning of the episode, I mentioned that I was so grateful to be partnering with Offering Tree once again, and I'm so excited to share their website platform here on this episode. There are numerous software platforms available to build websites these days, but truly my favorite and the one that I always recommend to yoga teachers is Offering Tree. Why? Because Offering Tree understands what yoga teachers need in a website platform. They've created beautiful yet simple and easy to use templates that allow you to create a website in minutes. Their software is functional and straightforward, but they also have great customer service. So if you're struggling with your website, you have help at the tips of your fingers. Their website software allows you to build out your website to include a beautiful homepage, an about section with your photo, a contact form, a lead magnet to collect email addresses, as well as a variety of services and offerings, just like we've talked about as something that I would recommend for you to create with your website. So whether you're offering your own classes, online classes, workshops, a video library, or a membership, you can do it all on Offering Tree, which is truly amazing. Gone are the days of numerous payments, passwords, and trying to connect different platforms to your website. So trust me when I say that Offering Tree makes the tech side of teaching super, super easy. And for that, I am so grateful. Offering Tree is also priced for yoga teachers, so you won't break the bank with this one-stop shop software. Plus, they're offering a discount if you use my link. It's 50% off your first 3 months of a monthly subscription, or 15% off your first year if you opt for an annual plan when you sign up at offeringtree.com/MBOM. So once again, you can head on over to offeringtree.com/MBOM and you'll see the opportunity to get that discount. And of course, you can have a trial. They've got a 7-day free trial as well as a 14-day free trial. So you have the opportunity to check out the software and just see how good it is for yourself. So once again, offeringtree.com/MBOM. And if you guys have any questions about that, of course, feel free to let me know. So that's what I would recommend for website software. But before we move on, I do want to talk a little bit about lead magnets, what that's all about, why it's important, and how you can utilize that in your business. And so a lead magnet is going to be some sort of freebie that you're going to offer your audience in exchange for their email address. So you can make this in the form of a pop-up on your website, or maybe you have a little box that they can fill out their email address. And it's really great because software programs now will allow you to set it up so that they automatically get an email with whatever your freebie is. This could be a PDF, this could be a little ebook, this could be a short video. And it can be really anything that you are excited to teach your audience about that they're going to be interested in. So this is a great way as you're kind of testing the waters with your business to figure out who's interested in the things that you're offering. And it's great if this can be something that's not super, super generic. Of course, you could do something like a free 10-minute yoga flow, but something a bit more specific, like yoga for headaches or yoga for sleep or yoga for anxiety or yoga for tight hips or a tight back, and something that you want to get these clients who are experiencing this thing onto your email list so that you're able to talk to them more, engage with them more, and hopefully sell them other programs and services and classes. And so you can do one freebie on your website. You can do multiples. I have a ton of different lead magnets and freebies on my website, and it's all just things that I've created to help people with their yoga businesses. So I know that in this episode, we're talking a lot about what we should be doing when we first get started, and lead magnets and websites, like I said before, can feel a little bit advanced, but I do feel that this is good information for you to have, especially as you start moving into the next level with your business, as you start wanting to grow your business, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're feeling a little overwhelmed by the idea of creating a PDF or a video and you're like, I have no idea what to do, you can just table that. Just have this as a tool in your toolbox for whenever you're ready. So that concludes our section on websites and lead magnets. The next thing we're going to talk about is prepping a teaching demo. And so if you have gone down the route of already looking for jobs or interviewing for jobs, then this might be something that's familiar for you. If you are brand new, then maybe you're like, what the heck is a yoga teaching demo? So this is basically like a yoga teacher interview. It's normally around 10 to 20 minutes long, and it is basically an opportunity for you to showcase your teaching style and skills. And it's an opportunity to showcase who you are as a yoga teacher to see if you're a good fit for the studio. It's always really important to ask how long it's going to be, because while I say 10 to 20 minutes, if you plan for that and then they want you to teach less time or more time, you just don't want to be frazzled. And so you can basically think of this as your interview. That will often be with the manager or the studio owner. You'll probably have a little bit of a conversation to tell them about yourself, about your teaching experience, your background, your style, and then you'll just teach for them for a few minutes to kind of showcase who you are. So we do have a yoga teaching demo checklist on the website. This is one of the freebies or lead magnets that I have available for you, but I'll go through a little checklist for you here so that you're just able to prepare a little bit. So I would really suggest, like I said before, to ask how long the teaching demo will be, as well as who will be attending, just so that you're not nervous or into a situation where you're not totally sure what to expect. And then I would suggest writing out an all-level sequence that highlights the poses you most commonly teach in a class that will be within the time frame of your demo. And then I would practice your teaching demo using a timer. So if they say, hey, I'd love for you to teach around 15 minutes, write out a little 15-minute sequence, practice it and see how that goes, make modifications, and then practice again. And if you're feeling nervous or you are quite new and not very experienced, I would recommend practicing for a friend or a family member, get them to give you some feedback, and then just take a deep breath and go crush it. There's not much to lose at this point, and I know it seems very intimidating, but once you do these a couple of times, it just becomes just like any other job interview, which I know we always feel nervous for job interviews, but this is what you're meant to do. So just take a breath and go crush it. When it comes to your yoga teaching demo sequence, you really want to think about what style of class you want to teach, if you're going to teach a little mini theme, if you're going to do a little 1-minute opener, and if so, what you're going to do for that. You want to think about what key poses you'll do to warm up your student. And then depending on the time frame that you have, think about kind of 5 to 10 key poses that you want to teach to really highlight your teaching. And so for me, I kind of think about all the poses that I most often teach in classes. So if I'm teaching Vinyasa flow classes, I have some kind of key go-to poses that I'm probably going to teach in basically every class. And so I feel like these are the ones, these are the ones that I feel most comfortable teaching, but also these are the ones that really highlight my teaching the best. You want to think about what cues you might want to say, if there's anything really specific you want to say. And then how will you close the class? How are you going to get people back down to the floor? Are you going to do a little mini, like 30-second to 1-minute Shavasana? Are you going to close with some breath work? Are you going to Om? How would you like to close your class for your teaching demo? So just thinking through that a little bit and practicing. There's no harm or shame in practicing this. I think even if I was to be offered a teaching demo now, I would practice it. And I've been teaching yoga for a decade now. Just like a job interview, I'd want to sit down and just make sure I was prepared and prepped and all that good stuff. So that's the next stage of getting everything prepared for getting your job. The next 2 things that I want to talk about are telling people that you want to teach and then connecting with studio owners. I think that these are 2 very important aspects of getting jobs, it's really important to remember that people don't read minds. So if you don't tell them that you want to teach, they might not really know, and it's going to be harder to find jobs. So really important to tell people in your life that you're interested in teaching, that you're willing to teach. So if they have an opportunity that they think of, or maybe they go to a yoga studio and they can tell that studio owner, or maybe they're looking for somebody to come teach at their house or do classes with them. You just never know. So really important to just be talking about the fact that you want to teach. And I very much understand that when you're first starting out and you don't have a lot of teaching experience or you haven't taught a lot, it feels very uncomfortable to put that yoga teacher hat on when you don't fully feel like a yoga teacher. There's a little bit of imposter syndrome here, but it's really important to move past the imposter syndrome and to just tell people, hey, I have a yoga teacher training certificate and I'm really excited to teach. If you hear of any opportunities, please let me know. Please keep me in mind. So the next thing with this is connecting with studio owners at studios that align with your teaching. And I think that the aspect of aligning with your teaching is really important. It's very important to be clear that you will not be for every studio and every studio will not be for you, and that's okay. Sometimes we have this sort of mentality, this scarcity mentality, like we really desperately need these jobs. But the thing is that it's really important to say yes to the things that feel good for you. So if you want to teach at a yoga studio, it's really important to go in person, show your face, take a class, introduce yourself, make time to get to know the studio, the teachers, and the studio owner. I'm a big fan of creating rapport with the studio owner or the studio manager if there is one, and just getting to know the vibe of the studio as well as the other teachers that teach there. It is, like I said, really important to make sure that studios feel like a good fit for you. You want to ask yourself if you can really truly see yourself teaching at that studio. Do they offer classes that you could confidently sub? Is your style and method of teaching similar to the other teachers already at the studio? Do you see yourself fitting in there? And once you've determined that the studio is a good fit for you, you can go ahead and create rapport with the studio owner and then express interest in teaching there. And one of the very first episodes that I did of this podcast way back in 2016 was with my good friend and mentor, Jeff Ma. He is a yoga studio owner that I've worked with and under for many, many years. And I admire him and respect his opinion and his knowledge a lot. And one of the things he said to me in our very first interview was, my studio is like my child, and the people that come there, I feel very protective over them, and I'm not going to let just anyone come in there. And so simply just sending an email and maybe like cold calling with a resume is not really going to work for a lot of studio owners. It's really important that you come in, you have a conversation, get to know the studio, get to know the studio owner, and build that rapport, like I said. So this is a really, really important aspect of getting teacher jobs. And I know that it's so much easier, quote unquote, easier for us to sit at our computers and look up jobs online and fire off resumes and hope that somebody calls us. And this might work with some studios, especially bigger studios, depending on where you live. But for the most part, just sending emails is not going to work. I've worked with many different studios who never hire teachers this way. So I think it's really important to just get out there, connect with people, and see the studios. And I think similarly, you want to make sure that the studio is a good fit for you. This is also you interviewing them, right? Before you even go and apply for the job, because the energy and the vibe is so important. So connect with studio owners, get yourself out there. And then the last thing I want to talk about here is saying yes as much as you can. So as a new yoga teacher, you don't often get a regular teaching slot. You really need to earn the yoga studio owner's trust. So you can do this by saying yes whenever you can, sub as many classes as you can whenever possible. And one of the pieces of advice that I got early on in my career that was really, really, really helpful for me was to say yes to find your no's. Discover what you love to teach and what you don't love to teach. And it's okay if there's styles of yoga or lengths of classes or times of day that you don't love to teach, but you're not going to truly know until you say yes. So say yes to subbing the 6 a.m. class. Say yes to subbing the power flow class or the slow flow class, even if you're like, I'm not too sure. Say yes to these teaching opportunities. Say yes to teaching on a Sunday morning to just see how it feels. This will really get you the teaching experience. It will get you to know the studios, the owner. It builds that rapport. And ultimately, it helps you discover what you want out of your teaching. So I will just quickly review those steps that we just talked about. We talked about getting a headshot. We talked about writing your bio. We talked about creating your resume. We talked about building a yoga website with a lead magnet. We talked about prepping a yoga teaching demo. We talked about telling people you want to teach, connecting with studio owners, and then saying yes as much as you can. So we're going out, we're doing all of this, we're getting the teaching gigs. What can you actually expect when you land a teaching gig at a studio? So, studio owners will often normally tell you how much they pay for classes. Rates will really depend on the size of the studio, where you're teaching, how much teaching experience you have, what your training and education is like, and so much more. But I would say average is between $35 to $50 per class. Sometimes there's bonuses for student attendance over a certain amount, or maybe having a certain amount of training or teaching hours. You will often need to sign a contract, so just read through these carefully, understand what you're agreeing to. If there's any red flags, make sure you have that conversation. Don't just sign something if you're feeling a little uncomfy with it. And then ideally, you'll be trained on how to use the studio software, take payments, open and close the studio. If studios aren't training you on this, make sure you ask before you teach. Ask them to kind of walk through everything from like, hey, do I have to unlock the studio? How do I close everything down? Do I need to check students in? Where are the light switches? How do I turn music on? All that type of stuff. So if they're not telling you this, just make sure you're asking so that all you have to do is go in there and get yourself ready and then teach. It's really, really stressful if all of a sudden you realize that you don't know where a light switch is and you have no light for your class or something crazy like that, or you can't take payment. And so you'll often go on the sub list or be offered your own class, and then you're expected to show up and teach your classes. And if you do get a regular time slot, then you'll be required to sub it out if you're not available, if you're going on vacation, if you're sick, et cetera, et cetera. So important to just ask and get clear on studio protocols around this type of thing. And often studios have like onboarding binders, or they've got a document on all this stuff. So just really important to familiarize yourself with the processes because every studio does things a little bit differently. And then finally with this, I just would encourage you to go out and enjoy yourself. You have landed some teaching gigs, so just go enjoy yourself, teach your face off, just be comfortable, be confident, and be amazing. And the last thing that I want to leave you with in this episode is just a reminder that even though you're new, you have a lot to offer the world with your classes and teaching. We're going to talk about money mindset and whatnot as we get into some more episodes. But please, please, please be charging for your offerings. Even by donation is great. I'm totally okay with some free and some exchange, especially as we get started. But please be confident in yourself and remember that you do have so much to offer. And please charge for your offerings. We need your gifts in the world, so please go out there and share and teach. I'm so excited for you. Of course, if you have any questions about anything that we've talked about today, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can find me at info@mbmyoga.com. Of course, you'll be able to find all of the info from this episode in the show notes, mbmyoga.com, and we'll also have a post up on social media at Mastering the Business of Yoga. And then I just wanted to point you in the direction of some more resources. So if you head on over to mbmyoga.com/new-yoga-teachers/, this will be in the show notes as well. You're going to get a page that has a ton of different freebies for you that'll help you with your business. And then if you scroll down, there's going to be links to more episodes. So one of the things that was really important for me with this send-off series was just kind of sectioning out the podcast. Because when you get to the podcast, there's 300 plus episodes. It's a lot of content. It's like I don't know where to start. I don't know what to listen to. And so basically, I've sorted a lot of the episodes based on their topics. So if you're brand new and you want more information about this type of stuff, getting your resume started, your yoga teaching demo, getting them in the mindset of going out there and teaching and being confident in yourself, you can head on over to this link, that mbomyoga.com/new yoga teachers, and listen to some more episodes. So you can scroll through the freebies down to the bottom and it'll show you some more episodes there. So I hope that is super helpful for you. I hope that gives you some of the resources you need. And like I said, please, 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 please do not hesitate to reach out if you need anything. Thank you so much for being here. I am so grateful that you're here listening and a part of this community. And of course, a big thank you and shout out to Offering Tree. Thank you to Offering Tree for supporting the show. Once again, you can learn more offeringtree.com/MBO. And I will look forward to seeing you next week for our next topic. Okay, bye for now. Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of the podcast. To find links, notes, resources, and everything mentioned in today and all episodes of the show, you can head on over to mbomyoga.com. You can find the podcast and myself on Facebook and social media at Mastering the Business of Yoga. And I would love for you to join the private Facebook community, Yoga Business Badasses. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please make sure you reach out to me at info@mbomyoga.com. And last of all, if you enjoyed this episode of the show, please make sure you hit subscribe and leave a review for the podcast. It would mean the world. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Namaste.